time where no one would vote against G2. I remember a time where they were the favored children and everyone would go ahead and bet for them regardless of whether or not they thought that G2 would win. They just were in that G2 corner. And it's just not that time anymore. Things have changed. Empire are definitely the favorite team coming into this matchup. We'll start with the bans. G2 are going to get rid of Jackal. And that just is suggesting that they want to roam. Nothing special about that. Thatcher ban from Empire, same sort of vein, very different purpose, but there's nothing special about it. It's just, okay, we want to be able to deny the walls a little bit easier. Valkyrie, information, getting rid of that. It's just pretty typical stuff. There is nothing special about this ban phase so far. I don't think it's going to start here. Maybe a Mira or a Kaid with the Thatcher ban. Oh, it's a mute, so same sort of idea of what you would when you would ban a Kaid, but instead you ban a mute, get rid of that wall denial. Makes sense, and it also makes droning a lot easier. That'll compensate a little bit for the Jackal ban, but nothing crazy going on with these bans.
And we talked about this when we saw the Cloud9 matchups and how Cloud9's been favoring those Mozzie bans. We talked about its impact, you and I, behind the scenes, of course, on a map like Consulate. It's a linear map, operator like Mozzie, an operator like Mute. They tend to have an excessive amount of value on maps that are a little bit more claustrophobic. And as it's been referred to by a wide variety of casters and players, more linear. And obviously a map like Oregon is not as linear as it used to be since this rework, but a long stretch of narrow corridors, very limited soft destruction, very limited vertical destruction on certain bomb sites means that an operator like Mute gets a ton of value with very little risk being involved. And of course, the two SAS operators on defense both come with shotguns. They come with good secondary gadgets. They come with a good secondary pistol / that SMG-11. So Mute is by no means here a bad ban.
No, I like what we've got going in here. It's going to be pretty conventional for both teams because of these bans being so standard. Bottom floor defense for G2 to start things off. So the expectation here, just to set it for everybody, is G2 are definitely the disadvantage in terms of the proficiency on Oregon. Already at this tournament, that's been proven. Team Empire seemed to be a little bit better on this map. The analyst desk was right. Dezen was right when saying that neither of these teams typically play Oregon. It's a banned map for both of these squads, but what we have seen does suggest a slight edge for Empire. So it is really on G2 to win on at least their mainstay sites for the first half. So that's bottom floor, where we are right now, and dorms, the top floor, when we get to it later. Those two sites should be impenetrable for G2, and if they're not, it's going to cause them some problems later in this match.
You can always tell based on the maps and based on which sites tend to do well. We've got numbers and data backing up exactly how teams tend to play here. And on a map like Oregon, you know, you're going to expect the defense to do decently well downstairs. You can expect them to do well upstairs. The one place where it usually breaks is that main floor, right? A fulcrum, or whichever you want to call it, that is kitchen, and then whether it's meeting or whether it's the mess hall. So this will be interesting to watch.
This Clash play is certainly interesting already. Very dangerous to be using Clash to try and slow down the attack. That is a clone from Dan. He's just gathering information. This is what makes Iana so powerful. This and the 3 explosives she has in her pockets. The Gon 6 and the 2 nades. Very powerful pick, and she's proven to be a mainstay here at the Six Invitational so far.
Major nuisance to deal with as well, and, you know, people will just bellyache over whether she should or shouldn't be in play. Oh, you know, just ban her. Well, obviously there's other optimal bans, Valkyrie and Mute being prioritized as the 2 bans here. As for Empire, they don't really want to deal with the backside of this site, and it's a rare laundry take for the moment. Now, there's still plenty of time for this to change. It looks like Empire's focus is now going to shift very quickly and with some urgency over towards Freezer, but a small mistake from Always, as he's only able to get 2 of those X-Kairos off, and they'll be picked away at. So all of this hard destruction that's been tossed at G2 by Empire over the last 20 seconds or so has been very deftly handled by G2.
Yeah, it's slow going on Empire's side. They have gotten the drops open. They're setting up for the attack, but no actual execution yet. No roamers to pick off. So it's going to come down to the explosive take into the site. Speaking of explosive, the nade out here, and Cancer Raketi's not fast enough. Dan gets the lead-off pick for Empire.
And Dan and Joystick will be the major win conditions for Empire. If you have a slow day from both of them, I don't know necessarily if Empire has that depth to compete with the fragging potential that G2 can bring to the table. Down goes Uno now as Joystick. He's going to try his best to get one onto the board, but just eluding him is that mirror down and crawling away inside a freezer. Scyther is there to pounce if need be and collect that kill that his teammate had started. All the while, the remaining members of G2 are just patiently waiting for this push. There goes Kayak, the Clash in a bad position, and hey, oh my goodness, a flawless round for Empire to start things off.
Oh, talk about a great way to begin your match. Empire not losing a single body on the first round. And you were talking about the fragging potential, the depth in that regard with G2, and I always mention it every time I see a clash because I think this is just so incredibly relevant. When it comes to the actual gunfights, when it comes to the team battles, having a clash on your team means you have one less gun participating. I know he can switch out to his SMG, but that transition is very dangerous, and in the middle of a team fight, it's not likely to happen. So in that last round, Empire, they get the leadoff pick onto Kantoraketti, who gets way too aggressive on the tower staircase. And what does that lead to? It means it's essentially a 3 versus 5. You've got the Clash, who is not participating directly in the gunfight other than to slow the enemy down, and Empire doesn't care because they're stacking up on Pillar, where the Clash happens to be trying to slow people down. There are multiple Empire bodies there. Yeah, Clash is going to be slowing you down a little bit, but not all of you, and that's still going to allow Empire to flood the site and start getting the control that they desperately need. Meanwhile, they get the pick on Kantoraketti. Kayak's not participating in the gunfights, and Uno goes down inside a freezer. And it just keeps getting worse and worse for G2. They lost that round, really, when Kanto died, and no one was in a position to make a play to bring them back into it.
All told, it looked like it was shaping up for Empire to take Laundry, as I had speculated early on. They paid very little attention to the back tower, very little attention to Kayak, and let him just exist. Obviously not really being that influential, but the fact that you've got somebody back there to give calls to the rest of your team with the Mira setups established inside a freezer and looking towards Laundry obviously would help. I like that Empire made the change and made that call to swap things up at the last second. It was probably deliberate. That's my best guess, but I mean, it's so hard to tell if that was something that was called on the fly. Empire is a team that historically, even though it's not as baked in as it used to be, historically, they didn't used to do things differently each round. They would almost painfully keep at the same strategy until it worked. And sometimes when it didn't work real fast, but more often than not at their peak, it obviously paid dividends. Here it's another defense of the bottom floor for G2, and they're hoping for better results this time than in the first round.
They have once again brought that Clash just to try and slow down the take. Empire have successfully corralled the roamers down into the site. Now, they didn't get the pick that they could have possibly gotten on Citizen, but they didn't lose anyone to Citizen either. So, yeah, it's all right. Not a big deal for Empire. They get the control, that's for sure, and they're doing this very efficiently. Start opening up the drop. Dangerous play here for Shepard and Citizen alike. C4 goes out, and it nets nothing. All right. So Empire feeling fine about that one. Citizen just not going to be able to deny the plant if it's out of position later on.
And already a change from how G2 is actively defending this. They put Kayak on those freezer stairs. He's now gone, by the way. He's still going to continue inside a freezer as he'd found himself here a little bit later in the round previously. He was instrumental at stopping Empire's attempt at taking that reinforcement on the wall. This time around, Scyther might try to dislodge whoever's playing behind it by a well-timed nade that can bounce out, potentially kill Uno. As he gets droned, the grenade goes off. Uno's aware of this, so he's able to fall back.
Fall back, indeed he will, and still no kills for either team, but Empire was in a similar position last round, and they made it work regardless. Exkyros on the mirror window. I don't know if it's going to be stopped this time. It will. 2 players inside a freezer, and this should be pretty easy for the defense to rebuff.
Ooh, there goes a Nitro sellout, but somebody's been playing Aim Labs. Scyther's grenade hits Uno, and that's the very first kill. To start things off with 40 seconds to go. G2 looking to be barricaded inside a freezer. That's where they're going to hold off. Citizens focus. It takes out Shepard. From the back, Dan, he goes unnoticed. He collapses on Kayak, and he can continue his assault as Kanto is now aware of this position. Good news for G2. You've got Virtue inside of Elbow. He pivots and is able to stop the flank that was coming in. So Empire's focus now is going to be laser-like. But it's over towards Freezer, and it's over towards Laundry. Nobody from Supply Room is moving a muscle. Case control in hand for Empire still, but no, surrendered at the last second as always is dropped through the hatch. Down goes Joystick as well, and it's Scyther in a 1v3. He's running out of time, 4 seconds left, and in the barbed wire, he will end. Kantoraketti the final kill for G2, and they pick up round number 2.
All right, well, that was a very interesting round. So both of the mirror windows for G2 are set up for a Laundry Freezer take to rebuff just that. The Clash is your secondary tool to try and stop an attack, a push from any lane that it happens to be coming from. And we would expect the Clash to be focused on Pillar because of the mirror windows existing on the Laundry Freezer side. But when the Clash shifts focus and Empire manages to get Joystick in a position to pick off that Clash, the opportunity arises for a shift in the attack from Empire. The only problem for Empire is that they didn't have enough time left in the round to facilitate that rotation that they called out. And well, they called the rotation, I think, with enough time left, maybe. They were just too slow on the rotate. I mean, Empire got the pick on Clash, and then 20 seconds-ish later, they're trying to push in through E-Box drop. And I think that's just too late. So a little bit of lethargy, a little bit of, too much contemplation on the side of Empire cost them that round. They should have just pounced on the opportunity that Joystick presented them with that pick onto Clash. It's done now, though, and G2 show us that they can be competent on their mainstay sites. They're going to go to the top floor next, Dorms, for their second site on Oregon.
It's going to be an Electric Claw through the wall, by the way. That'll get... Oh,
if you can hit
again.
Hey.
There you go. Bit of a cheeky angle there. Cannot wait to see that, by the way, in Ranked. And cannot wait to see that in content creator videos. If it already hasn't been widely publicized, well, it certainly will be now. I
think it is already. It's a pretty common one, but it's weird because if you know it's there, it's real easy to counter.
Yeah. I mean, you draw it out and you just need to shoot the wood and then it's gone. But I mean, the question is if you know it's there, and that's the real, that's the real head scratcher, right? Brings me back to the days of when it was Dark Zero that used the double Electric Claws on the border wall. One inside of the cabinet and the other above the vent. Nobody really saw it at the beginning, and it was a very cheeky play that actually DZ paid credit to SSG for teaching them. So
yeah, you can get away with stuff like that in Siege if you just keep it hidden for long enough. And it's actually, that's part of the reason why there was such a discussion about the replays at their advent. Now the replays for this event are all going to be public. It was tweeted out by Way a while ago, and that's pretty awesome. But in past events, it was definitely, do we make this all public? Because little Electric Claws like that, if you could keep them hidden, you could use them for a long time, conceivably.
Exactly. Teams can bellyache all they want, but I think it's a net good that we get to this level because, I mean, your cheekiness is good enough usually for 1 or 2 matches, and there are lots of teams that will bring out the big guns and try to surprise people. Now, with all that said, we're at the halfway mark of the round. There is a drone on Citizen who just narrowly misses out on Joystick. He takes some damage as now there's continued fire being returned from this classroom window. Citizen scoots himself upstairs with Kanto Raketti in tow, but Kanto instead decides to go in a meeting. Joystick still watching this angle. He's shadow boxing Phantoms at this point because there's nobody inside a classroom whatsoever.
Very extensive roam from G2, even though there's no one in the main lobby. You can see they've got Virtue and Kanto Raketti on the roam. Kanto in meeting, Virtue in basement. And actually, they're both going to meet up downstairs. As there's only a minute left for Empire to execute. They've got to make a play happen now, and they've actually got Joystick at the top of White Stairs. This could be huge.
Joystick is poised and ready to strike. His presence is now known as he fires into the wall, maybe giving himself away a little bit too prematurely. Kanto Raketti now on the stairs below the bomb site, and guess what? He's good enough to collect Scyther, starting things off here for G2 on the right foot. 40 seconds to go. This seems to be the magic number for these teams, as now this is where the execute has taken place 3 rounds in a row. Dan and Joystick separated by what could be a country mile as Joystick just feeds Kayak full of bullets inside of games. Dan's movement inside of Attic given away, but he's able to get the kill onto Citizen before turning and looking towards Dorms. Joystick 1-2. Virtue gets the single kill for G2 amidst the fray. A Nitro cell from below of Uno manages to claim always, but no, it's Uno actually perfectly upright. So now it's Shepard's turn to get that diffuser down. Virtue will have to do something. Oh, he picks off Joystick. Does he know where the plant is going down? He does not. Seemingly swinging around the corner, getting the drop onto Shepard. He doesn't know it. Now he does. A big 3-piece for Virtue, and he'll get that diffuser quite easily. G2 takes the lead.
Huge round for G2. Virtue as well as Uno really coming in strong there. The roam is what made it so one-sided when it came to the execution. That pick the Kanto Raketti managed to get for the top of Freezer Stairs, that started things off for G2. Empire never recovered from it. Yes, they did manage to answer back with some picks onto the site, but because of that early frag, there was still a decided advantage for G2 in the fragging department as they answered every kill Empire pulled out. There it is. The moment of truth. Kanto Raketti so big there. And even though Empire got Attic practically for free on that entry, and they managed to use that control to leverage big window for a plant. It still wasn't enough because of how well G2 played in the refrag department. And also, Uno, that C4 from dorms, massive, influencing the round so significantly that forcing another player from Empire to vault in through the big window and pick up that diffuser to go for the plant. That's just one fewer gun in the action. So G2 getting both of their good sites. Now they go to the tertiary, the dreaded middle site, whether it be the cafeteria kitchen or kitchen meeting. Either way, it's not always easy to defend these sites. Actually, it's always not easy, I guess I should say, because these are difficult ones to pull off.
Yeah. I mean, all told, that was the first crack at an attack on that site. So for Empire, they performed admirably, I suppose. Virtue playing inside of dorms was the big factor, right? Dan walks in, he gets the pick, but then he gets traded off by Virtue. The moment that Dan is down inside of Attic, Virtue has free reign and no real push presence from Empire inside of that dorm site. Honestly, that ends up becoming the pivotal moment. So you said they didn't recover at the beginning. I absolutely believe that, and I agree with it full-heartedly. But Dan's inability to make as much noise inside of Attic and hold that position down, it doomed his team. And we've seen time and time again that when you're attacking that dorm's bomb site, if you've got somebody playing inside of Attic, you need them to clear Attic. You need them to be able to hold across into games if the diffuser's going down there. Moot point, because in that previous round, Empire got the diffuser down by big window and bunks. But you also need somebody in Attic to apply pressure to kids' dorms, because if you cannot pressure someone in dorms, then they are just going to be able to freely exist there and rotate out with the way that the defense has the setup.
Claymore here for Joystick. Obviously, he's not expecting that to get a kill, but it at least gives you a little bit of warning when the enemy breaks it. Gonna try and open up the wall into pit. And that'll force Uno to rotate into dorms. So this roam upstairs for G2, trying their best to slow down the take. You want to deny upstairs for as long as possible, because the vertical play from Empire will likely net them some kills through these holes in the floor, and the ones that Empire will make later on with their breaching charges on always. It's been a good delay so far. Dan is going to be the anvil to the top floor hammer. As he plays by Showers Hall, he could definitely make some work happen on cutting off the cross, but Joystick on the entry is going to get the lead off. Now it's on Uno to get that re.
Citizen on the flank here is going to be particularly instrumental, especially since he's losing some of his teammates. Position given away. Can you catch the one on drone? No, turn around. You don't see him. Shepard is there. Citizen just a bit of a blinder on, and he can't determine where the last member of Empire closest to him is. Off he pops, and there he goes, finishing off the Jaeger in matching G2 dress, should I say. You can get that in the shop, by the way. It's obviously not going to help you, just like it didn't help G2 in that round.
No, but it is a snazzy looking uniform. Interesting round, that's for sure. The top floor clear for Empire, really well done. That's the biggest thing. Empire wasted almost no time on opening up the walls and engaging the roamers on the top floor. And because of that, they caught the roamers from G2 upstairs before they could fall back. Usually, when you're roaming top floor, yeah, you want to delay, but you're not trying to die on the top floor. You want to just slow the attack down and then fall back. Empire did not let G2 do that. And even when they did, there were players on Empire who were ready to catch the rotate. So Uno was the only one to make it out of the top floor for G2. He died almost as soon as he rotated back to the site because Empire was already pressuring the site directly from small tower. So a really well-coordinated split push from Empire. The timing could not have been more perfect from their two prongs. And G2 definitely going to struggle on sites like that. Interestingly, they will re-up. I'm not really sure why. I guess they feel like they could correct a mistake that they made. They don't need to be here right now. I believe the bottom floor should be open, but they've chosen to go back here.
It worked out for them when they did it in round number 2. I mean, they gambled on laundry and supply. It didn't work out for them the first time. The second time, it was a much better round for them, and they looked quite comfortable, frankly. It wasn't even like they needed to fight tooth or nail, and there's always speculation that we have to throw out here. Why does a team go back to a site that they just lost? You've put it best, and you said this ages ago. A team will go there when they think that it was a small mistake that led to a greater result, and they can very easily rectify that.
Yeah, and maybe that's what we're seeing here. But
what was the mistake, though? That's the question that I have to ask.
I mean, to me, that's the thing, Parker. I saw, okay, yeah, the roam upstairs for G2, it lost, but really it felt more like Empire's roam clear was just extremely proficient. I don't fault anything in particular that G2 did in the last round. I just think Empire's execution was that much better. So this is definitely a risk.
Well, it's 1 minute to go, and it looks like Empire are playing with a little bit more confidence than they had in the previous round. There's still some roam presence from G2. Does he net all of them? That's the question with that impact thrown out. No, he misses 2. So some damage will be done to that attic wall. Just as we saw in the second round, G2 had the upper hand on the same site that they had just lost. And well, Kayak is doing his best to show us that it will happen yet again as he picks off Dan to start this off.
Now, the pit wall is open, and is the closet wall is open as well. Oh, they marked him. I'm not sure why. That's a little confusing. A red mark warns Citizen that he's been spotted, and Citizen will fall back downstairs instead of being a pick for Joystick. So that's an interesting thing that happened there. So the roam has been pushed back from G2. Empire, though, were the ones to lose out on the early pick this time. So they need to make a recovery. It's on them to get the kill to bring them back into this round. And Joystick seems to have a play in mind while the top floor clear continues to push in.
Look at Joystick's position right now. He's got a clear line of sight all the way into the back of meeting if he wants it. Virtue's been downed, and we're still not quite at that fabled 40-second mark. Joystick flicks away, though, and manages to somehow evade 2 members of G2 who are both looking for him. And picks up a second. Powerful stuff from the Russian Cyborg. We've come to expect this level of play from him. At this point, G2 find themselves in a spot they didn't want to be in. Trailing, but Kayak picks off Joystick. Beautiful play from the newest member of G2. The Yak strikes back. Scyther on white stairs rather takes out Uno, and the advantage for Empire is returned, leaving Kanto, Raketti, and Kayak to hold off the 2K members of G2. Shepard inside the site by the sandbags. He'll go for the plant. Kanto, Raketti down from above, so Kayak will have to retake. 3 kills. The grenade that was in the hands of Scyther will now be dropped, but Kayak's the 3 armor, and he knows how tough this is going to be. Does he have any intel? Yes, he does. Red mark's going away, but Shepard is better. Kayak finished from above. And a second attempt at a bomb site that they just previously lost does not work out in G2's favor as Empire wins that round.
Wow. What a turnaround there for Team Empire. The leadoff pick for G2, and it's unanswered for most of the round. And you'd think to yourself, okay, G2 have this one in the bag. But they make one crucial mistake. There's no one watching Zulu. Why is there no coverage on Zulu for G2? If you're not going to have a player watching it, then you need to have barbed wire, a Malusi, something to at least warn you. Heck, a proximity alarm would work great. But you have to have some kind of warning for a Zulu push like the one that we just saw from Joystick. Now, I have to imagine the original plan is for Citizen, who was on the roam by Laundry Stairs, to give warning about Zulu being open, but either that warning didn't go out, or when he left the Zulu coverage, or it was just not heard. Either way, that is a glaring hole in your defense that caused major problems when Joystick inserted himself into it, managed to pick up those 2 kills. Those little mistakes cost you a lot at this level, and I'm not used to seeing a team like G2 making those mistakes.
I mean, you mustn't have watched much of their matches so far in SI, Michael.
I have. It's, you know, it's still weird though, Parker. I mean, I'm conditioned. I've had years and years of G2 not making those mistakes, and it's still hard for me to shake. You know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah, no, I mean, I understand entirely what you're saying. I completely get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, G2's fall from grace also largely happened after we stopped casting them. I mean, you know, we saw them get the pity invite, the legacy invite to SI last year.
Oh boy, yeah.
We saw their final ride with that core roster before Fabian got moved off. They were in a transitional period. Empire also had a fall from grace, but the thing for Empire, now that they've seemingly come back alive, and their reign of terror that they had during that 2019 year, seemingly starting again out of nowhere.
They are a land team.
Shocked many people. Yeah. Is that Empire didn't have those same highs that G2 had. Empire are not world champions. Obviously, they won at Milan. They won the Pro League season finals. Obviously, they won the Raleigh Major. They are major champions.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
They are not world champions. They're going to lose those ex-Kairos, by the way.
Yeah.
There they go.
I love that from Kayak. I just want to say that's a good awareness. You don't have to pre-place it. You can freely take some X-Gyro. Sorry, continue your thought.
Unbridled confidence from the Yak, by the way, as he just plays down there, and then always, as well, same level of confidence as he haphazardly discards those X-Kairos onto the hatch. Now it's Dan to come through the back of tower. This is the same spot that he's played in many, many times. As his grenade goes off, somebody on G2 surely heard that and have called that out.
It's probably going to be, that's for sure. A G2, once again, on the hard bunker strategy here. This time, notice the difference in time. 1:15 still for Empire to consider their options, and they've just about got all the drops open. So now they can slowly work out that first pick, and then look at the choices. Okay, do we go for a back take? Do we go for a front take? I'm feeling this right now. They also don't have to deal with a clash this time, which might make a world of difference.
Kanto Raketti seemed to be the one tasked with dealing with back tower. He's still in that same position. The Maverick of Shepard is relocating. Could this be an E-box drop? As the C4 in hand from Kayak is anticipating somebody heading in that direction and will blow them skyward if they don't make their steps appropriately. Grenade in hand to slow down the Banshee. The sound will be given away, but his slow will not be. Smoke there as Shepard walks right in. Grenade's getting tossed out. Virtue survives one. He survives two, in fact. Do they know whether Elbow has been barricaded? That's the question. They drone him out very quickly, and he'll toss out another toxic canister. Scyther's the one that's positioned in Dan's spot as he's going to hit through the back. Kayak starts things off. He takes out Joystick, and it's an all-out brawl on the site. Virtue still holding Elbow, but nobody from Empire is there. They've swung around, and they're coming in through electrical box. Shepard in the doorway getting the plant down. Citizen will need to stop this. Off the plant he goes, swinging as best he can, but there's too many guns from Empire for him to task. The mirror comes on in, but Kayak gets the final kill and shuts it down. The first half is tied up 3-3, and we'll see what G2 can do on attack as Empire moves to defense.
Wow, what an absolute mosh pit on the site there. G2 managing to outshoulder Empire in those engagements. Well played. It was a bit of a messy execute from Empire too. We have to highlight that. They did manage to get a lot of the drops open, but they never got the pick early that they needed to maintain the advantage on the execution. They didn't drain any of the utility. They plant denial from G2 before going for the plant. And they didn't even have elbow control. So, yeah, that one falls on squarely on Empire's shoulders for that round loss. G2 playing it methodical, playing it safe, and it works out because Empire's not punishing, and they're not trying to peel away. There's no poke. It's just wait. All right, we're going to mosh pit in sight. That's always going to favor the defenders in an even man count situation, especially with those bottlenecks not opened up. So, half one done away with. Empire managed 3 attack rounds on Oregon. That's pretty solid. And while they lost that last round, they're still, in my opinion, in a slight lead with an even round count going into the second half.
This bottom floor bomb site is going to be the scene for most of Oregon, as always. Easily considered one of the most defendable on the map. It's already seen 3 plays by G2 on their defensive stead, and now Empire will go right back there. And if you look at the lineup that's being brought from Empire right now, boy, oh boy, doesn't it look familiar. Why? It's because it's the exact same lineup that was brought by G2 previously. The only difference between G2's first 2 defenses on Laundry Supply and their last was that they omitted the Clash and instead ran with a Kaid. Mira obviously seeing some play on this bomb site, absent on Dorms and Meeting Hall, the 2 defenses that we saw in Meeting Hall in particular that were won by Empire. Saw a revolving cast for G2. The one constant that's been in every single round, or the 2 constants rather, actually make that 3. The 3 constants. They've run Smoke, Jaeger, and Malusi every single round thus far. And with the fact that she's being brought by Empire now too, they have a 100% influence rate and pick rate right now.
And big operators, that's for sure. You're going to be seeing them commonly on defense as the meta dictates. Oh, G2 in this round trying to clear out these roamers, of which there are, let me check my numbers here, 0. They just have to make that determination. G2 just needs to know for sure they're not going to get flanked before they start making plays freely and using their clock to pick away at the site. I like that Cancer Kitty's already done his portion of the clear, and he's focusing on the staircase by tower, opening up that Melusi, getting rid of it, and then, you know, allowing himself some time to ponder a pick by pillar. It's good that he's already pressuring the site while the rest of his team finishes up elsewhere, because that just saves you time in the long run.
Both teams favored 2 sets of nades when they were on attack. You see the exact same thing happening now as well with the Yana and Maverick holding on to that, whether it's a Yana or whether it's a Sledge. In fact, when we saw the meeting hall and kitchen take, the Yana that they were running had a Gone 6 in hand to go with that. I'm assuming that Citizen is likely going to have it as the sidearm too. Unfortunately, one of the downsides of this UI, we don't get access to what their sidearm is. So we'll have to wait and see if at any point you hear the telltale signs of the Gone 6, just as we'd heard previously. Citizen's just going to play here for intel. This is interesting because he didn't bother to take the entire barricade out. We'll let that clone recharge, but he could have got more. I think the game plan was to not give that position away, directly get information, and then move if need be, and that seems to be what G2 has done.
There's some more information being gathered, but they aren't going to spot Joystick, who's creeping up the freezer staircase. He's checked for, though, and Citizen is better. We'll even tell Joystick post-mortem just that. So with the leadoff pick here, G2 are in a great position to execute with the last 30 seconds.
They're at the mercy of the clock, though. You're absolutely right. That E-Box hatch just gets popped. G2 ready to drop. Kayak is stranded over by Blue, but G2's guns are finding their mark. Dan answers back. Cantor Raketti on back stairs. Scyther will be the one looking in that direction. He's pushed off by a nade. Out goes a C4. Huge kill onto Uno, as Virtue's now down by the doorways as well. G2's mismanagement of the clock is burying them at this exact moment. Cantor Raketti not good enough in freezer. All 3 kills for Empire in G2's, or rather in Dan's hands. He's going to need to look for another as Kayak gets a pick, but he can't outrun the clock. Father Time is ultimately his biggest adversary, and the very first defense goes in favor of Empire.
I stand by what I said. Empire did have a significant back foot there. G2 were in a great position after getting those picks, but you were right, Parker. Not enough time to execute. Just way too slow on the push-in, and this is despite how quickly G2 managed to get that control upstairs. I think they lingered a little bit too much on the consideration of a roamer. On like, oh, is there somebody on Empire in a rat corner somewhere off in the map? Maybe. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry. But because of that consideration, because of that time spent thinking about whether or not they're going to get flanked, they did not have enough time for the execute. And this was apparent because you could see like one or a few of the players on G2 just like looking at corners like, oh, is there anyone in small tower? Well, we didn't check. We don't know. So it's a little bit of that time. Just 10 seconds maybe makes all the difference. And that round plays out very similarly to some of the rounds we saw in the first half. And as you would expect, the defense has the favored side on Oregon bottom floor defense. Now they'll go to the top floor to see what they can work out here.
I don't know if this is just simply because we haven't seen an awful lot of international competition, so maybe they're not used to playing against each other, but the attacks are painfully slow through SI. I can think of almost half of the teams competing who just simply cannot manage the clock effectively. We are not in this 20-second meta any longer. There is far less that you need to cut through. You don't have to deal with Mutant Mozzie's prevalence, so you're not battling information. Like, there's so much that the attackers have now. It's made Yana a significantly higher pick because she brings grenades and she brings the Gone 6. The attackers are doubling up on Ashe and Zofia when available and when comfortable. Sledge is seeing a near constant pick rate. So it is a little strange to me how slow a lot of these teams are being, and it's something that usually gets directed at North America, but it's every single region who are experiencing this right now.
Well, Parker, I honestly think it's just trepidation. I think it's like, oh, okay, we're at the Six Invitational, and every action we take, every move we make means so much more. And I mean, that's
every breath you make.
It was unintentional. I heard it after I said it, but
you knew it was coming.
I knew, yeah, I did. I mean, I was wondering. I was like, is he gonna say it? No, but as I was trying to say though, like I think it's just it's trepidation. It's the pressure. There's a lot of it right now. Scyther, speaking of pressure, is going to feel some as he gets put down to about 30 HP from this attic push. Cantor Raketti and Virtue, putting on that pressure inside of attic. They can possibly get another prong added to this attack when they go for the execute later on.
Well, one of those my magnets in action as you hear it go off in the background. This is actually the first time that we're seeing a Wamai here. So just as I talked about this 20-second meta, you look at the composition that Empire's brought. Well, it's very different from their last one. Malusi, Jaeger, and Smoke maintain their 100% pick rate so far through Oregon, but a Goyo and a Wamai being added to the mix, they've yet to be played. They're both going to bring significant denial, especially when combined with Jaeger's ADSs and the shields that come with Goyo. For now, the rework is on the horizon. But for now, those shields don't just work for time delay, they also work for gadget delay. There's a Gon 6 in hand. They'll burn out the ADSs, and there goes the Banshee that's positioned by the dorm's doorway, rather the attic doorway, more specifically. It's going to give free passage on in. Sound that goes off is not really as important as the fact that you've now gotten rid of a device that will slow you on your entry. And of course, with how poorly G2 managed the clock on that previous round, getting rid of the Banshees is a very good step.
Still plenty of explosives here for the attack. And nice peek from Joystick. Down goes Citizen. And that means the nade will not make it to bottom of big window. The opening pick goes to Empire, and they're going to keep adding to it. It's just Virtue and Cancer Kenny all of a sudden. And now they've got 30 seconds left. Virtue will get a pick onto Scyther, who puzzlingly tries to push into Trophy, but it's not going to work out as Joystick's there to double down. He gets his third kill. And now he's looking for a fourth. Knowing Virtue is inside of Attic, he'll challenge and he'll just win. Joystick does not lose those. A 4K in the round for him. And Team Empire will take their first defense of the top floor.
Joystick skilled player, but that is not normally. This is very, very insane. They need to check him PC and game. Maybe he not cheating, but maybe he using game deficit. And this can't be seen on game screen.
I can't believe that you remembered that verbatim.
I read it.
Oh, okay. I was like, there's no way.
I appreciate the confidence you have in me.
I mean, it just
to memorize
like so
something like that, but absolutely not. No, that was Joystick smurfing on G2 in that round, playing off of his own abilities.
He's just pushing him.
This has been the story for Empire so far. Joystick's stats are patently absurd at this level. And it's a conversation that has being had right now, but absolutely needs to come to the forefront if it's not. There have been a lot of tremendous players so far. Throughout all of SI, we've seen different people step up for different regions. The only region where I haven't really seen anybody in particular be a part of the conversation at the moment is APAC. But outside of that, you've got Alamo being the talk of the town for Latin America, and it's absolutely deserved. Joystick has been dominating along with Alems when it comes from EU. If you look at NA, they've been talking about Skies, they've been talking about Bosco, and to a lesser extent, they've been talking about Canadian because he had that great game yesterday. But when we look at Joystick's influence, Joystick, no matter what team he's playing against, is always competing for the top. This is not something that Joystick can say he's been able to do for the last year and a half. He's had some serious struggles, and he's bounced back, and he's playing so vibrantly and so competitively. It is wonderful to see.
Parker, I think there are certain players like Joystick and like Canadian who like absolutely live and breathe off of the motivation that the stakes of a match will present them. Oh, down goes
I'm sorry,
Virtue.
who are we just talking about, Michael?
It's Joystick. Now he's put down to 20 HP, but that's still a huge win. And he's going to get cut off and killed here by Citizen. But the momentum carries on from that kill. The reverberations are deep.
I mean,
that's your Zofia down. No utility used.
I mean, I understand that you took Virtue out. He had a great first half. His second half, he hasn't been anywhere near as impactful. Nobody on G2, frankly, has been very impactful on the second half through the 2 rounds of action that we've seen. But you just silenced Joystick.
Yeah.
I don't care what operator he's playing on, by the way. It doesn't matter to me. The fact that you've taken Joystick out of action alone is a blow somewhat to Empire's confidence. It's a boost to your own confidence, and it's one significant worry that you don't need to concern yourself with.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That is fair. And, you do have Always, who's chowing down on a donut right now, and he's in a pivotal position upstairs. So if he's not able to get his first kill, then he will cause problems for his team because he's a huge linchpin on that top floor hold for Empire right now. If G2 can identify that and pressure him, maybe get that pick off, then the top floor hold will crumple. So that's a good opportunity for G2, but right now they're focused on this meeting take.
The next Kairos will go off right now. Of course, you're absolutely right. With the fact that Empire's bringing this Jaeger, no Wamai present, so you don't need to worry about Zofia's influence being even more integral for your execute, which is good news for G2, by the way. But at this point in time, I like where G2 is at just simply based on who is left and what they can accomplish. You've taken out Joystick. You've been able to cut through most of this utility. You've got 45 seconds left to be able to pull this off. This is better timing than we've seen out of G2 in the previous 2 rounds. So they'll knuckle down and get ready for this. But just as they are prepared to push in, Empire is ready to answer it back. They know that there's a default plant going off, and Kayak gets dropped by a great play from Always. His first kill, highly impactful so far. G2 will now need to scramble to get that case down yet again, as Citizen is perched up at the top of White Stairs, watching towards dorms. He's going to have to check for the Jaeger, but no, he pushes out, and he gets dropped by Scyther. What it was an advantage for G2 is now gone. Back to a 2v2, though. Kanto Raketti doing his best to try and give his team a lead. He'll get the diffuser down now. That leaves Uno Meister in a 1v2 to try and watch. Uno watching over Kanto quite well, sitting, waiting, both members from Empire from above, and they will fight through the hatch. There's lots of pings going on inside of the site. Everybody except for Uno has taken a serious beating at this point, and this will be a tense retake for Empire. 30 seconds left on the clock. Uno perched in a bit of a wrap position, watching the doorway. He hears the reload, waiting for it, capitalizing, swinging onto one, but there's another in line of sight. He pulls out, and he gets it. 2 huge kills from Uno, and they'll shut the door on Empire, clutching that round.
Big rat corner there for Uno. Just the perfect way to play that round. Awareness, 10 out of 10. And it was a curious round, to be sure. Back and forth it went. Even trade on the roam clear early on, but might be slightly lopsided for G2 because it's Joystick you're killing, putting a lot more pressure on Dan's shoulders. Then the initial plant attempt from G2 halted because G2 didn't fully clear out the top floor. That's huge! Why are you trying to plant when you're completely exposed to those roamers upstairs that Empire still has? Questionable decision-making there from G2. And so, okay, initial attempt punished, but for some odd reason, G2 and Empire decide to play Ring Around the Rosie upstairs, which distracts those 2 roamers upstairs who happen to now be the last defenders left for Empire. They're distracted, Diffuser gets picked up and brought all the way over to cafeteria or dining, and now plant goes down. Just such an odd series of events. I really got to hand it to Uno managing to extract himself from that situation upstairs, leave the roamers alone, and just meet up with his teammate to play the post plant. And he was a big part of why they won in that post plant. But I can't get away from the Ring Around the Rosie that Always and Uno did with each other on the top floor. That was just hilarious.
I mean, when you're a team, even if you are G2 and not performing up to the standards that you may have and that the community may have set for you, the fact that you're able to make those calls on the fly is good. And the one biggest criticism that we've seen out of G2 recently is a lack of leadership. This was something that was touched upon during the BDS match, where you see during the BDS's matches, they're always talking. Alems is always talking, working through it. G2 was a very chatty team when Fabian and Pengu were on this roster. You saw them talking incessantly, and there were periods of time with that old roster where it would look like 4 of the 5 players would all be talking at the same time, much probably to Shaz's chagrin. However, nowadays, G2 looks silent, and they look frustrated more often than not. I'd be frustrated with the way that they're playing and throughout this entire tournament. As for their opponents, Empire are a team that are ice cold. They have very minimal communication, and it doesn't matter. Hell, they don't even take timeouts, for crying out loud. But it doesn't matter because they still somehow manage to have that leadership, because sometimes fewer words can do the trick here. G2 being able to find that confidence, being able to make a change on the fly and adapt to their opponents is a good sign.
And they're 1 away from that even split 5-5. But they're going to have to correct course here, as last time they attacked onto the bottom floor. G2 struggled with the clock and with opening up those bottlenecks, giving themselves more avenues to attack the site. Yeah, they're going to get the drops, but are they going to get the single wall into the site? Are they going to get the mirror windows? Are they attacking from back? Are they going to get elbow if they do so? These are the questions that are really important. And as the clock hits 90 seconds, time becomes much more of a factor, and you have to consider where you're actually going to execute from. G2 right now don't seem to be even close to being sure where they want to go. And look at this. Joystick putting that barricade up, that's actually huge, because it gives you warning on elbow if you're going to be pressured, and it allows the Jaeger of Always to play deep in blue, which protects E-box and backstairs. That's massive barricade that just went up, and it's going to cause problems for G2 later on unless they go for a back take and open it up.
I don't know if G2 exactly has their planning mapped out, as we are in 55 seconds. Final minute of this round. The magic number for these teams so far has been 40 seconds. When we hit that 40-second mark, that's when the shuffling towards the site begins. As you talked about that barricade, it's already paying dividends. The Citizen and Kayak have rotated towards bunker. They're waiting for the ADS to get burned out. Out goes one of the toxic canisters, so they'll either have to charge through it and take some damage or simply try to wait it out. Meanwhile, Always has now moved over to Harry Potter. He's sitting under the stairs. Citizen finished off by the SMG in hand for Shepard. If Team Empire prevail here, it's match point for them. Virtue dropping through E-Box, but he's immediately finished by Dan. A trade, though, and then a trade right back. Empire's the one coming out on top of all of these, leaving Kayak to die alone inside a bunker, and Empire to move to match point.
Big round there from Empire, but really just a questionable round from G2. That's the best way I can put it. The nicest, most political way I can put it. 30-ish, 40-ish seconds left when G2 start to execute, yeah. And guess what they don't have? Elbow control. Guess what they don't have? Pillar control. And they're trying to go for a back take. And you can make that work if you're very lucky, but you shouldn't plan around that. You should have ample time to get the pick on pillar before trying to flood it. Super dangerous there for G2. They're going to take a tactical timeout on match point as they don't really have a choice. It's now or never. And they need 2 rounds to bring this to overtime.
If we look at what the record are for teams at the moment and the matches that still need to be played today, it's Empire and G2 with BTS all done. BTS's single group of, or their single game that was played here on the A stream and the 2 they played on the B stream are in the books. Of the remaining matches today, you've got DZ playing Liquid. Spoilers, by the way. Team 1 absolutely punished Dark Zero in their previous matchup, 7-2. So after DZ started the day off on a high note, beating Empire 8-6, well, Team 1 humbled them 7-2. DZ now has their hands full with another Brazilian powerhouse and Team Liquid coming up next on the B stream, by the way, that you can tune into live right now, though it'll probably be on a commercial break. We're talking about this by now, all the way, or we're talking about this all the way, by the way. Words are hard. Talking about this, by the way, because G2 has taken a timeout, which is fine. I mean, I would have argued that they could have taken it before they were going back to a site that they've had some troubles with. But I'm not Shas. Shas knows this game far better than I think either you or I do. A brilliant mind, and he's going to try to settle this team down. As for the standings, though, if we want to contextualize where we are, because we can talk about what happened there, but I think you summed up that hold pretty well. Right now, sitting atop the standings in Group A, BDS done for the day at 5-1. If Empire prevails here, I don't think there's enough of a difference in the score to make much of a round differential growth for Team Empire. So Team Empire are going to finish the day in second, no matter what. They'll finish 5-1. They'll be tied with BDS. That's huge. G2 will move to 1-5. Cyclops, later on, in our next matchup, are playing against FaZe. If Cyclops do not prevail there, they will also go 1-5 on the day. If you look at the remaining matches for Group A, there's only one more playday left. It's going to be on Friday. It's on May 15th. You've got BDS playing C9 and Liquid, and then you've got them playing Cyclops. So they're going to be playing C9 and Cyclops to end this, 2 of the lower placed teams. If you look at Empire's strength of schedule, they're playing Cyclops as well, but then they've got FaZe and Furia. That's going to be tougher for Empire. If you are G2, G2's 3 remaining matchups after this are Dark Zero, Liquid, and C9.
Wow.
That is a tough schedule for G2. And if G2 are not able to push this into OT and come away with a victory, right now, based on the schedule, they're going to struggle mightily against Dark Zero and Liquid. And the only game, based on where the standings are, that they might be in it is C9. That's it.
And that is not where you want to find yourself, obviously. But there's still recovery potential here for the G2 fans out there. All hope is not lost. 2 rounds in a row is feasible. It is on attack, so that's the risk. They can't lose at all, so there's no buffer of, oh, yeah. Don't worry about it. They'll win on the offsite. No. Empire can go to the top floor 2 times in a row, which means G2 has to be ready for whatever Empire brings on this top floor both times. Now, it is, once again, a very similar setup here for Empire. They're going for the shield strategy. That just adds layers to the defense. It's an extra little bit of stuff that the attack has to clear out. It's not as powerful as it used to be because there's so much to clear out with. I mean, almost everyone on the attack has an explosive that could deal with the shield. So, yeah, it's definitely something they're ready for. And look at that. Speaking of explosives, Citizen with a very well-placed nade. Down goes your top frag. And, oh, that might be just what they need to get into this round.
And that'll put us in a very crucial final round. Of course, these teams always need every single round when they match up against each other. Doesn't matter if it's in Raleigh, doesn't matter if it's here, doesn't even matter if it's in EUL. Just like that, by the way, the server entirely cleared out. Citizen doing his best to not lose. The man does not want to give up one bit. This is an upstairs hold with just Shepard and Scyther hanging on to what is essentially a very tattered defense. And Scyther manages to shrug off a bullet, as we also saw the same from Uno. Now Scyther looks towards yellow stairs, takes out the Ash of Kanto Raketti, but that's it. Kayak just walks in, and he adorns the walls with their blood. Bit gruesome imagery, but a bit of a gruesome round from Empire 2. G2 will force a 12th round, as Empire still sit on match point.
Definitely a nail-biter, literally, as we come down to the final round of Empire versus G2 in regulation. Now, if G2 managed to win this, we're going to overtime, and then it'll be whoever takes 2 out of 3. Now, that last round, Empire's roam downstairs severely punished, their anchors in sight also punished by the nades from below, and all re-engagement attempts from Empire rebuffed by G2, shut down completely, and netting even more kills for G2, leaving the anchors alone, scared, terrified, just unsure what to do in their cold, dark corner. And it didn't really, there wasn't a lot of hope for Empire at that point. So round over, let's say. Moving on to the second attempt here for Empire, and they're going for a very similar, if not exactly the same setup. I imagine they'll play their roamers differently, because that was one of the major difference makers. Possibly more aggressive to deny the nades from below, of which there are plenty, 3 sets on G2's side. And that is necessary because of the abundance of shields thanks to Goyo and Smoke. So possibly a more aggressive roam. I don't know if that's exactly what Empire's going to bring out, or if they're maybe going to try more passive, but I think the aggro is probably the play. You don't really have much of a choice on this site.
5 seconds remaining.
So a very pivotal round for these teams, summed up perfectly by you, by the way. This is we are getting into the thick of it right now. After the very first play day, both Empire and G2, and in fact all of the teams that had a bad day from Group A said the same thing. Oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
True.
Well, it's becoming a sprint.
That is also true.
And I mean, just because you're not a good sprinter doesn't mean you're going to run a good marathon either. Let's be honest. You know, it's
it's true.
I'm not a very good sprinter. Oh, are you a long distance runner? No, I don't run at all.
Well, I mean, some teams are going to suffer like that, yeah. You got to remember, only one team's getting eliminated from each group, but your seeding matters a lot, because you could be in the upper or the lower bracket, and that is a whole world of difference on where you place.
Absolutely. It is a marathon. I mean, we are going for another full week and a half. We are very far from over this event. Even though some of these teams mentally might seem like they are a little bit over it, they are absolutely not, and they might be worn down or beaten down. But they're still competitive.
Ooh.
For fans of good Rainbow Six Siege, you're hoping that G2 is going to remain competitive. All the while, though, Joystick is prepared to strike right here. Oh my goodness, he could potentially get this.
He's playing with fire. But if he gets it... Yeah, well, that's the question. But it looks like the answer might be no. Oh, it's all down to luck at this point. He's been spotted out by the drone, and Kanto Raketti will swat Joystick away. He is definitely going to be feeling those burns, Parker.
Joystick was 12-5 for the record. He's 13-8 since then, and he has not been able to add much to his team. The good news is that while Team Empire has remained competitive, it's largely been off of the shoulders of Scyther, so they're broad enough to carry the team with him. Dan has also gone quite quiet over the last couple rounds, which goes to show you that G2's comeback is not just because of their own ability, but their ability to shut down the hot hands from Empire. Maybe they're given a bit of a leg up by the fact that Empire themselves are finding it hard to close out in the clutch. That'll be a question for later. All the while, all these explosions happening in front of, always inside of security, not a single scratch on the paint at all. And if they don't think that they've droned him out, which right now G2 has absolutely zero intel on that room, if they swing in the wrong direction, then that's going to be a very easy pick or two for always, given the way that G2 are stacked up here. In they come, the Ash looks the wrong way, Kanto Raketti goes down, always good enough for 2. Down goes Virtue as well, and he immediately moves over. Citizen now in the hunt, he'll look in one direction. Kayak might as well be on another planet with where he is. Citizen will need to win this one, and he nails it quite easily. But this is going to be tense. Final 25 seconds. Everything is on G2 right now to try and tie this up and send them into overtime. If not, then very easily Team Empire takes the W and moves on. But G2 stack up is by big window. Empire are ready for this. They're in that position. Dan is on the ground. The two members from Empire inside of dorms right now as Kayak hops on in. He gets dropped though, and the diffuser's down as well. Scyther's credited with that one. Uno will have to grab the diffuser as it's him versus the world in a 1v3. Empire are looking to knock out G2. And amidst the smoke, Uno just sees his life ticking away with the clock ticking away. Empire takes the matchup.
Huge win there for Empire, and talk about impact frags for Always. He had 4 kills in that entire series, but 2 of them came in that final round and influenced it more than any of the other kills during that round. Always definitely a hero, showing up when it was most relevant. Well played to him, well played to Empire. They didn't even need Joystick in the final round. They had Always.
And Always had a very slow start. Joystick had a very hot start. What ends up happening? Always and Scyther warm up in the second half. Joystick and Scyther, or Joystick and Dan, cool off. And guess what? It doesn't matter how well you're playing at the beginning if the rest of the team can close that gap. One of the strengths of teams like BDS, like Empire, like the old G2, and like we tend to see with a lot of the EU teams, is that they have very deep rosters. Gone are the days of a hyper carry where you have an aggro fragger like Kanto Ricchetti racking up kills while the rest of the team helps out where need be. Now we see a much more even distribution. And of course, Empire benefit from that. G2 go out 1-2 on the day. Empire had a great day. They're going to finish tied with BDS in first with 5-1 as their record. That's it for you and I casting this matchup. It was every bit as exciting as we'd hoped for. We'll be back as the experts in just a couple minutes, but as always, a break. We'll see you soon.